Hi everyone, my name is Hannah. I go by Microbiologist Makes here on YouTube as well as over on Instagram. This is a channel all about my cross-stitching, knitting, crafting, crochet endeavors. Welcome to Flosstube number 24. So it has been 3 months since my last update. Thank you all for joining me today. I have a lot to talk about. A few whips, some new starts, 8 finishes since September. I decided going into 2026 that I really want to bring down not necessarily my whip count in total, but those older projects that have just been sticking around year after year because I don't get to stitch seasonal things for that long. Because I don't tolerate stitching them out of that season really. So I've dedicated some time to those older projects and knocked a few of them off my list. So that's a really good feeling. I've also replaced them with new starts, so that's exciting as well. You may notice that I'm in a new filming location, a very yellow craft room, which is exciting. So I purchased a home in November, so that is a whole new world, but I'm grateful to be not living the apartment life anymore for sure. And hopefully the walls will not remain yellow for too much longer. I have a few colors picked out. I really like Benjamin Moore, I think it is, knitting basket, very appropriately named too, but it's sort of like a dusty pink, maybe some gray or cooler undertone to it. I think that'd be really pretty. So we'll see. My backdrop will be ever changing probably. I'd like to keep a dedicated filming space in my craft room, which would be really nice, and move a chair up here so I'm not sitting on the floor perpetually. Yeah, in the background, this is, so it's contested whether this is actually a family heirloom or if it was just something an older relative found and then claimed to be a family heirloom. I don't know, but it's a very old spinning wheel that's not functional but looks nice. So yeah, a little bit of a tangent. Before I get too deep in this, I have a little sponsorship to announce, and that is Bob and Brad. This is the Bob and Brad Hand Spa Pro, and I've been using it as a hand recovery tool, especially on days when my hands feel overworked. What makes this different is the 8-zone finger and palm compression. Each finger is massaged individually, plus the palm, so it hits spots that flat hand massagers completely miss. You can actually feel the airbags working up and down each finger. There are 3 modes and 3 intensity levels, and you can add heat, which heats up in about 5 seconds. I usually start gentle and then switch to a deeper compression. So if you deal with arthritis, circulation issues, or cold hands, especially in the winter, the heat is a game changer. I love that it's quiet, cordless, and rechargeable with USB-C. I use it on the couch while watching TV or before bed. It's only about 45 decibels, so it's not disruptive. And Bob and Brad are 2 of the most famous physical therapists on the internet. They've got over 60 years of combined experience, so this isn't just a gadget. It's built around real therapy principles. Thank you to Bob and Brad for reaching out and sending me this system. I look forward to reaching for it after I experience hand fatigue from all of these crafts that I can focus on for so long, and then experience side effects of stiffness as a result. So if you have chronic hand pain or just a very dedicated crafter, I can see how this would be beneficial for you as well. If you're interested, I have a code BobandBradHand for 10% off, and I will link all the relevant information in the description box of this video for you. And now we're gonna get on with the crafts. So I have 8 cross-stitch finishes to share today. 6 of them are unfinished, 2 are framed, and only 1 has been posted on Instagram, and that is the Pumpkin House by Hello from Liz Matthews. I started this on September 23rd, 2023, and finished on September 27th of 2025. And I used the called for DMC conversion that's given in the chart instead of using the NPIs. And I dyed this linen myself. It is a 32 count, just white. I got off of 123 Stitch. Over-dyed, or dyed the whole piece with taupe RIT that was very diluted, and then went in with a blue RIT and just dunked half of it in, which had some carryover, a little bit of bleeding into the grass, but very little. I was surprised at how easy it was to control how far the dye went. So that is the pumpkin house all finished. I believe I will frame this. I have a swing frame that I think could work for it. A swing like pedestal frame, but we'll see. I probably won't worry about that until later in the summer. Next up, I think I still have a few more fall finishes after this. This is Autumn Town by Autumn Lane Stitchery. I started this one in 2021, so another old whip. She's done. I dyed this fabric as well. It is a even weave, and I used green apple RIT. I remember that. And I used the majority of the DMCs, except I toned down the pumpkins. It was a very blaze orange, which wasn't exactly what I wanted for my own, although it does look really vibrant and cool. And then I also toned down the sky. And then I used some of the color, and I substituted some of the colors of the trees for color and cottons that I just had from when I was in their thread club. I did use the called for silk for the trees though. And that sky was what was putting me off. I think I had everything but like a few trees up here done prior to picking this up this past fall. But yeah, that sky was what was putting me off for sure. And then I ended up having this frame and stash that I got quite a long time ago, and it actually cut off like a few rows of the sky and a few rows of the pumpkins at the bottom. It didn't cut off anything from the side, but I was a little irritated that I didn't have to actually stitch all that sky. It ended up cutting it off, but whatever, it's done. I was not anticipating finding a frame that would go right up to the edge, but it happened. So that one is ready to be displayed for next year. Okay, 2 more fall ones and then we jump into Christmas. So this is Night Creatures by A Carriage House, and I picked it up from, was this the August Marketplace or whatever they call that, releases. I started this pretty much as soon as it came in the mail, and this is on Morning Fog by Be Stitch Me in a 40 count. And finished that one pretty quickly. That was start in 2025 and finish in 2025. And I converted most of the colors to color and cottons that just looked like the model. I think I used the called for DMC in the Raven, like the gray was the DMC that was called for. Otherwise, I just picked color and cottons that looked exactly like the cover picture pretty much, so. And this is not 40. I think I said 40. This is 32 count because I used 2 threads. I kind of went back to that after I did. So yeah, the other 2 finishes I just showed you were 2 over 2. And I've been doing one thread over 2 for so long on 40 and 36. 46 have been my go-to for new starts lately, but getting back into the 2 over 2 was really nice. I don't know. I like it all, I guess, so. Last fall finish is Autumn Quaker by Primrose Cottage. I had started this one on October 18th of 2025, and I finished it on November 14th. I have the Christmas one done as well. This is a 32 count that I dyed myself, and the thread is in a color and cotton. So I think I did the Christmas one as a pillow, so I'll do this one as a pillow as well too. I don't know, I like all the other ones in the series too. I know they have quite a few now. I just don't have plans to do any of them at this point, but we'll see what happens. Okay, now we're getting into Christmas. So this is Noel Sampler by Brenda Gervais. I stitched this on a Tropical Stitches fabric, and I used the DMC that was called for. I did have to switch up the whites, so I changed the snow color to more of a gray so it actually show up on this fabric, and I changed some of the snowflakes to like a dusty pink color. So I will stop talking about it and show it. It's my Noel sampler. This is, yeah, as I said, 36 count. Hopefully I said that. With one thread. I didn't use two at the time, and I love it. I got stalled out after I'd done the alphabet, and that house is deceptively large. It doesn't look that large, but I don't know, it took me a while. So there we are. That was nice to finish. I think I had started this in 2020, so another old one that is gone. I'm really happy with her. I actually had put the date in at the top of, I've been saying I'm gonna finish Noel Sampler for like 3 years now, and I had like 2022 at the top, and I was just gonna leave it, but then I couldn't, so I picked out the 2 and put in a 5, so whatever. Then this one was a new start at Thanksgiving. This is Peppermint Candy by Lindy Stitches, and it is on a 32 count, not another sampler. Bam, she's in her frame. I guess I also posted this one to Instagram, so you may have seen it before. I was going home for Thanksgiving. I had packed all my stitching, you know, before I left for work that morning, so I just had to grab it from the stairs. Well, I did not grab it from the stairs. I only grabbed my suitcase. So I get to my parents' house. I have nothing to stitch for like 5 days. Luckily, my mom is a stitcher, so I got to raid her stash, very gracious of her, and I kitted this up. So this was a pattern I had bought at the Jingle Ball, not this past year, but the year before. So I had the PDF on my phone, on my Google Drive, and she had some of the classic colorworks. I think I used Licorice Red was the only one that she had, and then I just picked other ones that were really similar because I believe some of these are called for to be done with Forbidden Fiber Co. At least that's what the model was done with. So just swap those out for very similar. I didn't change or substitute any completely different colors. So, and this one was so much fun to do all those little motifs. So cute. I don't know which I do know which I like the best. The goose. I will always pick a goose, but that bunny in the red sweater. So, yay, happy with that one too. I'm never gonna say I hate this finish. I don't know why. Have to add that on. And then we're down to the last 2. So these both were actually finished on December 30th. I've never finished 2 projects in a day before. That is purely because I was nerdy and had the Stitch Pal app up on my phone since the beginning of December, and I was doing a set amount of stitches in each of these per day. The app allows you to calculate based on your total stitch count and remaining days, and the goal that whatever goal date you set tells you how many stitches you need to do per day. And then adapts that when you over exceed your goal for the day or don't quite meet it. So that was really motivating to me to see that percentage of what I had left go down and down. So I was able to, knock out 2 cross stitch whips in a day. And the first was Christmas Morning by Erin Elizabeth. I did this on I believe it's 32 count, not really sure anymore. It was just a white that I had, and then I tea-dyed because it was just like ultra white and I wanted it a little dingy. And I used Forest Glade by Gentle Arts as the green. I think I went through 5 skeins. I think it's like a 6,000 stitch project, so using 2 threads does eat up a lot of material, so, but that is that one. And then the other December 30th finish was Oh by Shakespeare's Peddler. Apologize for the ginormous wrinkle. This was a PDF I also had, so yeah, I have a habit and pattern keeper and could monitor my stitch count. I stitched this on 40 Count Gray by Weeks Dye Works. It is obviously the old base because it is like gauze. I do not have any more. I don't really have Weeks in stash at all, but for whatever reason I had this little offcut and it is very flimsy. I had it in a Q-snap though, and I keep my Q-snap like super tight, so I didn't really notice it when I was stitching until you take it out of the Q-snap and it's like this. But yeah, I've used some of the called for threads and then I substituted some of the random ones that I did not have. And the roof is very ghosty. I don't know if I liked that really, but I wasn't gonna rip it out, so yeah, I love the penny border at the bottom and I love this song, so happy to have that one done. And that concludes my finishes. I have a few whips as well. The biggest, so it's December 30th, I had finished those whips. I think it was the next day, the 31st, and I had my tablet, just an Android cheap tablet that I got like maybe 5 years ago for $40 at Walmart. I had it plugged in because it did not hold a charge anymore. Plugged in overnight, and I go to turn it on the next morning. I'm ready to start this new project that I'll show you, and I couldn't get it to turn on. I tried a lot of different things, tips and tricks I found on the internet, on Reddit, and it did not work. So I lost all of my pattern keeper progress, which I've heard horror stories of this happening to other people, and I did not heed their advice and back up my progress files so that I could just transfer them over and have everything crossed off that I've done. And no, so now I have to go back in and manually do that. I'm not doing that for every project from the get-go, just as I pull that whip out. If I haven't updated it in Pattern Keeper on my new tablet, then I'm gonna have to do that. But I only had like 6 or 7 projects in Pattern Keeper. It's only gonna be a problem for my full coverage whips. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Anyway, new tablet. And I started with some friends. I know this was a Sal started by Slow Snail Stitching called Black Forest Quaker Sal. This is by Owl Forest Embroidery, and I started this as my new year, new start. I had to audition some fabric and threads, so I didn't really start until, I believe it was the 3rd or 4th of January. But, oh, and I'm keeping it in my beautiful project bag made by my friend Wendy and her sister. They took like a tablecloth or old doily and appliqued that on there. Really cool. And also, so this is a bigger project. I think it's 25,530 stitches. And I figured if I do about 500 stitches a week or 2,000 stitches a month, that I would get, I'd basically have it finished by December. I'd only be 500 stitches off or so. So I've actually done 700 stitches over the first week of January so far. So I think that's achievable. I'm doing this one on 46 count. It is a Cedar River linen that I got from the Stitchery Nook in Osage, Iowa. And it is an off dye or a mist dye, so it didn't come out to whatever color they were trying to dye standards, but there's no dye spots or anything. It's just, I mean, it's a really pale, maybe it's pink, maybe it's peach, I don't know. It looks different in any light I bring it up to. It's probably gonna look yellow in this craft room, but here's where I am. I'm using a Mosale silk that I'll zoom in on in a bit. It's called Frankenstein's Monster. I love it. I got this off of their Etsy shop. So it goes from like a gray to purple to, I don't know, green, like a sage green. And it's just fabulous. So I have quite a bit of this. I bought a hank, which their hanks are very reasonable. So that is my start. I want to keep up with my progress on that. And then shortly after, I think it was the next day, I started Sugar, which is the animal cracker by Stacy Nash. I'm doing this one on 40 Count Mayflower by Colorado Cross Stitcher. I'm using all color and cottons that I have in stash. I am gonna change the sweater color, I think to like a cornflower blue, but haven't gotten to the sweater yet, so I won't tell you for sure. It's called for in a green, which it's surprising that I don't keep with that because green is my favorite color, but I just thought it looked pretty in like an icy blue color. So I don't know. Here's Sugar. I started filling in the head very strangely, so I actually, so I started with the tail. I did part of the tail and then I was like, I don't want to stitch in columns anymore. So I'm going to move over to head, and I completely outlined it. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so efficient. I'm going to outline the head and then I can just fill it in, you know, not look at the pattern or count anymore. And it's just going to be like do this and it'll be smooth sailing. So I was off by 1 stitch, like 3 stitches into starting the outline. No errors anywhere else. So I had to back up and rip all that out, and then ended up staying up super late, and I was miserable at work the next day. But her head is for the most part, I rip out my mistakes. I don't leave something unless I really can fudge it. And it was gonna end up where if I didn't rip that out, the head like rounding, it was like on the side, and like where it would blend in with the sweater, she would have been like this probably. There would have been no like defined neck curvature. So that was ripped out. I have also been working on some Christmas whips that I think these are the last 2 Christmas whips I have. And I want to get them finished this year. So I'm gonna do, as part of my plans, I guess I don't really have defined plans, because if I make defined plans, I want to break them, self-sabotage. So I'm gonna split this up into thirds throughout the year. So in the first 4 months of the year, I want to get to 30% on each of these, and then, which I've already achieved for one of them, and then the next 4 months get the next 30%, and then finish these in the last part of the year. So the first one I'll show you is Stars and Snowflakes by Lindy Stitches. This is on a solo die, which I think means that it's one of a kind, by Color and Cotton. I picked this up when I got to visit the store. I think it's been 2 years now, gosh. So yeah, that's where this is from. I'm using all the called for threads. This is Stars and Snowflakes, if I didn't already say that. And again, geese with scarves. I can't. So I think at 25%, so only 5 more percent, only a little bit more to go before I hit 30. And then I will move on and work on other things, revisit this around probably Christmas and July timeframe. And this one is harder to define if I'm at 30% or not. Basically, there's 6 pages, so I finished the top two pages. I'm gonna finish the middle 2, the middle part of the year. You get it. So this is Christmas Bell Sampler by Heartstring Samplery. I'm stitching this on 40 Count Rocky Mountain by XG Designs with Color and Cotton threads. That's really the theme today. And I'm using a shimmery, whatever that shimmery DMC is called. Is that a toile? For the bells, which doesn't really show up super well on camera. But I finished the top 2 pages, so we're calling this 30%. 33.67%. And those are all my whips. I have a little bit of haul to share, as well as a knitting finish if you're interested. So please stick around. I also picked up The Turkey by Cottage Garden Samplings, part of the Year in the Woods Part 2 sale. I have 2 of the Part 1 done. I have the fox and the beaver. And I really like quite a few that are in the Part 2, but especially the turkey. So I want to do that maybe this fall, we'll see. And then this was a thrifting find. I know a lot of people, I think Cross Stitch the Globe has a sale going on for this, for Paula Vaughn Leisure Arts patterns. I found one at a thrift store. I think she was like 50 cents, not sure. But I really love, you know, the spinning wheel, the granny square looking quilt thing. And yeah, I just think it's really cool. So I plan to stitch that someday. Although, wow, that's a lot of DMC. Well, we'll cross that bridge, I guess. Okay, knitting finishes. I haven't done a lot of knitting this winter, which is very strange for me. I usually get really into knitting as it gets colder, but I've been doing a lot of things, so I guess that's okay. But I did start, and I literally finished this last night, so it has been blocking and it's still a little bit damp, but at least the curling was taken care of. So this is the Twisted Edge scarf by, insert designer name here, on Etsy. And I stitched this with a Bluebird yarn, fingering weight yarn that I had held with merino from, oh gosh, designer name will also need to be scrolled here. And it's really fuzzy and pretty, and an alternative, I've made a couple of the Sophie scarves, which is a very popular pattern by Petite Knit. I've made a couple of those, and I wanted an alternative, I guess. So those are knit and garter, and then have a slip stitch edge. So these have a cable, this pattern has a cable edge, which is not coming across super well with the variegated yarn. So, but I thought that was interesting, just something different, and it also has knit and stockinette. So I will not try to put this on because it smells like wet sheep, so don't really want that. But yeah, just a triangle scarf. And it took me way longer than it should have. It was not a hard pattern by any means. Should not have taken me this long. I don't know, didn't reach for it as much. So the pattern is in itself very easily translatable, easy to memorize and get in a groove. However, the pattern itself has errors. And I believe they came out with an updated version, although I haven't looked at it to tell you if it's any better or not. But there are some glaring errors. So you'll get to a row and you'll be like, I have 2 stitches left, did I mess up? No, you didn't. So if you do buy this pattern and you have questions, I mean, it's easy to figure out yourself, but if you do have questions, let me know, because I certainly thought I was going crazy. And no, it's just a little mistake in the pattern, but maybe that's fixed in the new version. I don't know. Here we go. And that is all the crafting I have done in the last 3 months. I look forward to continuing with that Sal, posting on Instagram more, replying to comments here more, and not sure when I'll be back, but I plan to be back eventually. So thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend with me, and feel free to let me know what you're working on, what plans you have for the new year. I'm always inspired by that. I love making plans, I just don't love following them. So, but again, thank you, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye.